Okay, so we're ready to score our first day of the Sailplane Grand Prix. And I have already set up my day by specifying the task, start time, altitude, airspace, and whatever I need to specify. So here I am in the scoring page, and I am ready to score. So here's how it's done. Presumably you will have set up a folder somewhere on your computer where all the files are going to be gathered once pilot start finishing the race, or you may have a situation where a pilot comes to the scoring room with a USB stick for you to copy the file out of or whatever. But whichever way you do it, you simply locate a folder in which a file or files you want to score are located, and what you will do is simply drag and drop the files onto the browser, and you see the files are uploaded and scored immediately. And you can see the OK here for each file, which means there was no problem. If there was some sort of problem uploading, you would see an error, a red box, so you would have to either upload the file again, or if the error continues, that may mean that there is some corruption on the file itself and you may need to download that again from the logger. So I've downloaded a few files, and as these come in, you can continue downloading files, or rather uploading files to the system. So let me upload a few more. It doesn't actually matter which day you have selected. The system knows to assign the files to the correct date, because what it does, looks at the date of the flight and assigns that to the day to be scored. So I've finished uploading my files for now, and I'm just going to press X here to make this go away. So let's just go over what we can see right here. We have the position and competition number of the pilot, pilot names, and so forth. And here we have the task time, which is the time, of course, the time it took the pilot to finish the task. And here, any penalty is specified in seconds. And here what we have is the scoring time. And what this is basically, it's the task time plus any penalty applied. So this is the time that actually counts for the ranking. To the right, you have the scoring speed. The scoring speed is based on the scoring time, which means it is calculated after any penalty is applied. And here you have the points. It's a practice day, of course, so the points won't count, but they're shown in the scoring system anyway. Here we have the status. We'll get into this in a while. And to the left here down, you can see there are notes for any penalty that is applied. Now, the system has scored each flight automatically and applied any penalties that were required and so forth. The first thing you need to do once you upload flights onto the system in the first day, or in any other day that maybe a pilot will give you an IGC file that comes from a new logger, is to just make sure that the files were assigned correctly. And here's how this is done. You go to IGC files, and here you have the list of files available for the specific day. So all these files were evaluated okay. And here we see that one file is unassigned. What will happen is that the system will look to, in the first day, assign files automatically based on the information it will find on the flight log. So maybe it's the name of the pilot or the competition number, or if you had actually specified for each pilot what the logger serial number on the primary and secondary loggers are, this would be picked up then directly from there. But if it's not, the first file to be uploaded for a pilot will be assigned as the primary logger, and if you upload a second file from another logger, that's going to be automatically assigned as a secondary logger. So here we have a file which the system didn't automatically manage to assign somewhere, and we have the logger serial number. So maybe from scrutineering you can have a list of the actual serial numbers, and you'll know, oh yeah, this is XY pilot. So let me actually go and assign this to a pilot, and let's just go and assign it to, I'm not sure who this is actually, because I don't have the list in front of me, but let's assign it to Georgia. So assign as primary, assign as secondary. I'm just going to click assign as primary here. And now let me refresh. Okay. So once this is assigned, it will actually be here. It was evaluated. It takes a bit of time to evaluate, maybe a few seconds. If you keep pressing refresh, you'll see when this is evaluated. So I go back to my scoring, and because this wasn't done automatically, I need to press refresh here just to get that score in as well. So here we are. We have the scoring completed, and we have this file assigned now. So next time we have a logger from a file from the same logger, it's automatically going to be assigned to that pilot. So I've finished with the automatic part of my scoring. Now, what I'd like to do, of course, is make sure that everything was scored correctly. So the first thing I will do once I have files come in is do a visual inspection of the trace and make sure that everything is correct. So the way I do this is I go here to this series of buttons under flight log, and it says primary. This means that this has been identified as a file coming from the primary log, and if it was otherwise, it may say secondary, for example. So I'm just going to click on this, and here is Uli Schwenk's flight. So let's click primary, and we have another window that opens up, and we are going to see the flight trace. So here we have the map, and we can just go around by dragging the mouse. And if you have a mouse wheel, this is an easy way of zooming in and out. Otherwise, you could use these buttons here, and you can examine the trace. Now, on the bottom here is you have the flight barogram, and you could click on the barogram itself to go to a particular point on the flight, or you could also drag the this bar here, or maybe use these buttons to go forward or backward. This is done by one fix, so per fix, per a few fixes, or even faster. So this is a way you can navigate around the fixes if you need to look at something. Here the green line is actually the release, and these are points in flight that are the actual turn points. Now, if there was an ENL, so nose detection, there isn't one in this file. Maybe we can find a file later that has that. You would see any yellow peeking in the background, which would be the noise level. You also have all the numbers here on the button for each fix. So for each fix I choose, I have the actual values here. So this is the time, local time, position, of course. This is the altitude, and it's in meters. It says QNH here. So basically what happens is that the scoring system will automatically calibrate the altitude according to the SGP rule, so taking a baseline from before takeoff. Now, there is a possibility that maybe if a logger didn't work and there wasn't such a baseline, so maybe, for example, the logger started working partially into the flight. And in this situation, you will have a penalty that should be automatically applied. But also here you should see QNE, or pressure altitude, stated here, and that will give an indication that the altitude is not calibrated. Just so you should know. Here is the ENL. There is no ENL information in the file, and here's just the fix number in the series of fixes in the file. Here you have other information, which is important, is ground speed, vertical speed, basically the calculation between fixes and fix accuracy. The ground speed is what interests us. If this particular logger logged other information such as ASI speed, etc., that would be showing here as well, but we're not interested in this for scoring purposes. Now, what I like to do once I see this file is to quickly go around the most important points of the flight. So I have this list of shortcuts here, so I can press start and immediately it will take me to the start. So here is the starting point. I'll just zoom in for clarity, and what the system does, if you go back one fix, you can see that here are the two fixes, and we determine an actual point marked with this blue. Now, you will notice this is slightly off the line. This is because there is some minor inaccuracy both in the plotting of the line. Remember, this is the plotting itself is not extra accurate. I mean, it's a few meters off just because the projection of the map, of course, is not accurate in the way it's plotted. But this is, I mean, if you see something which is way off, you should be concerned. But this is basically how the start point is assigned. And if you go to the finish, well, here it's much clearer. And you have the finish point right on the line. And what this will do is, it will actually go in between the fixes, and according to what the rules are for the SGP, it will assign a time, and time is basically in seconds. So it's not going to do partial for seconds, but let's say this fix, we had one fix in 1555, and we have a 1559. So based on the distance between these two, it's going to assign a specific finish time and also interpolate the altitude, which is going to be the start or finish altitude for any penalty purposes. And this is all calculated according to what the SGP rules are. So basically you look at the start and finish and any turn points. So you can go through the turn points if you feel you need to, and just make sure that everything is right. I mean, this is more important also if there are penalties. So for example, here we have Lawrence has a penalty landing without crossing the finish line. So an 128-second penalty was applied, and a finish too low, where invariably, of course, we took the finish as the penalty. So let's look at Evil's flight. So start is fine, but finish, let's see. So we are at the finish, and go here. Oops, yes, indeed. Oops, sorry, Lawrence. It looks like you actually missed the finish. So yes, the scoring program has done this correctly, and we're satisfied with this. So notice we've looked into a number of files right now, and we may be confused about which files we've looked at, which files we haven't looked at. And here's where the status comes into play. You will notice that for flights that have been scored, we have a pre, and what that means is preliminary. And the reason for this is that it's an easy way to use this to make sure that which files, to keep track of which files we have actually inspected. So I already looked at Uli's file. So if I click on the status here, you notice it switches to OK. So I visually know that I have looked at this file and I'm OK. Having files in pre as opposed to OK, it's not going to make any difference in terms of how the results appear. It's just for the scorer to have a reminder and to make sure that eventually they'll go through all the files and everything is okay. So I looked at Lawrence's file. You will notice here I have a PRV for provisional. And again, that doesn't make a difference for the scoring results. It's sort of a highlight saying, oh, we have a penalty in which cases landed without crossing the finish line. And we may want to take a look at that because, maybe there's a penalty here which may require more inspection. So if I actually go back to the penalty here, you will notice that an altitude penalty was given in addition to missing the finish. And that's because basically the finish was on the ground. Now, if I remember correctly, the rules, this penalty should not be applied. So we have to do something and say, okay, we applied the finish without finish line. We shouldn't be really applying a finish penalty for the altitude. So here I need to manually override the actual scoring. And there's a way to do this, and it's simple. You go here and you press the button under the column edit, and for ease, it's also marked with the competition number of the pilot, so EVO in this case. And here we have basically what amounts to master override for all the settings. Now, I'm going to go through this. Here we have the status, so provisional, and eventually I want to put this to OK, but it could be also did not finish, did not compete, disqualified, or did not start if they missed the start, etc. So here I'm going to eventually do this as OK because I will have checked this, and this is an alternative to pressing the pre-button to go to OK, or if you press a pre-button and it goes to OK and it's the wrong one, you can always go back to the edit and reset the status to pre or PRV as it was here. So I'll put this to OK, and if I wanted, I could actually edit the finish time even, or the task time, or penalties applied, or anything, and that would appear on the final result. So if for some reason I need to edit some information because the scoring was wrong, or presumably maybe I have I'm missing a file because somebody landed out and I don't have that file, but I can, I know some of this information, so I can put this in and even show a score in the results without the file. Here's where I can do everything, and this will override any automatic scoring. So in this situation, I just want to take away the finish penalty. Now you will notice here that we have penalties applied, and this is basically the text that was generated by the automatic system. And here is a box where I can actually go and modify this text. Maybe I need to do a different annotation, or I want to add something, and I can change this and do whatever I want. Now here, actually, what I want to do is take away the penalty. So I have to do two things. I have to actually change the penalties applied, and I should apply only 128 seconds. So here we are, applied 128 seconds. And I'm going to just delete the second penalty. So there I am. And if I press OK, you see it below. This has been change to the correct one, and I have the correct notation for the penalty, and also the scoring time has automatically been applied, and this has been a change in order also. And notice here I have an M next to the flight log. This means that the flight now has been manually edited, so there's been a manual override, and you can you keep track of that fact by having an M here. So I'm finished with Lawrence's score. Let me take a look into other flights. I mean, I'm going to go through all the flights, but for the purposes here, let's say I have checked all these flights and I'm happy. DNF is DNF. It's not going to be okay. So there is no short list for this status, but we're going to look into these as well and make sure that it is correct. So if I wish to change this to okay, it would mean that there was actual time scored. So anyway, let me go to Renee's flight and have a look. So Renee outlanding. Oh, let me look at what happened here. Ooh, let me zoom out. Yes, so Renee just went into airspace, and let me check the altitude, 14 meters. Which is this airspace? Yep, that looks correct. Yep. Here he is. So, yes. Sorry, Renee. It looks like you went into airspace. So this was scored correctly, and we are happy about this. And if we look at Zitzlow's flight as well, ooh, same story here. Oh well. Sorry, Zitzlow. Facts of life. Don't go into airspace. So here I am. I have scored all the flights and I have looked into them and I'm happy that everything is okay. And where it was not okay, I did my manual override. So everything is fine. No, there's nothing untoward here. So the last thing I'm going to do, this was a practice day, and basically some people did not start or did not do the task. Actually, they flew a task. I didn't bother to upload their files here, but they decided they're not going to fly the assigned task. They flew something else. This is fine. So I'm happy with my day. I'm happy with everything. And the last thing I'm going to do once all the files were in and I'm satisfied that the scoring is correct is I'm going to mark the results as unofficial. So I just clicked here and I'm just going to click and mark this as unofficial. And normally official should go automatically. There's a small bug here which I am about to correct. No worries about this. But the reason I did this is that preliminary results means that basically I'm expecting more files in, so the results may change because simply not all the pilots have finished or not all the log files are in yet. So once I change to unofficial, two things are going to happen. First of all, in the results page on the site, it's going to say unofficial results. So, people are going to understand that, okay, these are all the results are in, and we'll be happy with that. And the second thing that will happen is that the automatic update in the results page is going to stop, because basically if a person looking at the site uploads the results page, clicks on the results page, this is going to update continually every minute or half minute or what have you, depending on the settings. And to stop this and lighten the loading of the server, I click on unofficial to stop this process. Now by next day's briefing, if there is no protest, that means that results become official. So don't forget next day to go and click official, and that will mark the results as official on the results page as well. You could go back and if you had a mistake, you could go and click the appropriate button, and that would change it. It's just a marker on the results. It doesn't do anything else. So that's how you score a day. I hope this has been helpful, and please make sure to also look at the other tutorials on pre-scoring and on managing IGC files, as well as dealing with problems that can occur in the scoring process. Thank you for watching.